All right.
Hey everyone, Autism Fitness founder Eric Chessen leading the movement for movement and bringing you another edition of Autism Fitness Tuesday training in our pro interview series, which is probably my favorite thing. No, I would say definitely my favorite thing that I've done with the channel so far. And today we have pro Carolyn Taylor with us. Carolyn, when did you take your pro course?
I actually took the pro course, the first one.
Mhm.
Um, was going to do an in-person one with you in
Yes.
2020, and of course that got put onto Zoom because of
Yeah.
COVID. But then I completed the level two
Mhm.
course in 2022.
Right.
Yeah, in
Wow.
the
Oh
summer.
yeah. So you were part of the pandemic switchover
Yeah,
when everything went virtual, and I almost lost my
exactly.
mind because I
Right.
thought, oh, it's not going to be as good. And then, in information wise, I was able to get a lot more in there too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, definitely.
one of the reasons that I was so well, there are a few reasons why I was so excited to get you into the interview series.
Mm,
Certainly, number one is your experience and your background.
mhm,
Being a parent and being both a parent and a fitness enthusiast and someone
mhm,
who is deeply embedded in this community.
mhm,
And then the third one also is as such a champion of the autism fitness methodology and always being a phenomenal asset to encourage other certified pros and connect with them on social and
mhm,
just be behind everybody who's doing this work too, which is so important because especially the age that we're in, it's easy to feel isolated for people,
mhm.
even if they're connected to 5,000 other people
Right.
on social. But
Mhm,
I one of the great things that I appreciate about you is you're always willing to reach out and to help coach and
mhm.
um, to really be there for other certified pros. And I know you've made some connections in the program too. So why don't we start with your background too, as both as a parent and then a fitness enthusiast as well.
Okay. All right. Well, of course, I am the mother of, I've got three kids, two sons
Hmm.
and a daughter. My daughter, she's just going to be 30. She's coming up to a big age.
Hmm.
But she was diagnosed with autism probably officially around the age of 6, although earlier there were indications of that. It took a little while.
Hmm.
And she's doing really well now. I mean, she requires low supports, of course. And there's such a broad spectrum. So, all of our athletes, all of our kids that we're dealing with and adults, have this, they fall onto this spectrum at various points. So
Hmm.
for my daughter, as she was growing up, she was, did quite well in school, but, there was, of course, the social aspects. Of course, that was a big challenge. And, and of course, sports would have been wonderful for her, but, there wasn't a lot of people working with kids with autism at that time. And when
Hmm.
I look back on that, oh my gosh, the benefits of Autism Fitness, and then, of course, other organizations would have been amazing.
Hmm.
So, as far as personally, of course, mom of an autism child. And then professionally, I started working for the Vancouver Canucks, which is an NHL hockey team.
Hmm.
And while I was working there, I worked in hospitality, but I also did tours of the arena. And the owners, we had new owners of the team, and they happened to, these three brothers, one of the brothers had a child with autism. So they
Hmm.
started an organization called the Canucks Autism Network, and they work with children and families and now adults with autism. And I started to doing tours with them around the arena for families and kind of got to know them that way, and then ultimately ended up working for the organization in the office, which was amazing
Hmm.
and really wonderful, just getting into contact with families. And then I left that organization to work for a post-secondary school, but I just loved the community and I loved working with the families. So I started to work in their support programs. So
Hmm.
now I coach skating, and I've worked in multi-sport. There's dance programs, music programs. I just kind of, I'll go wherever they need me. I just
Hmm.
love it, and I just love being in contact with the kids and the families and the adults as well. It's just so wonderful.
Hmm.
And then fitness wise, I've been involved with CrossFit for over 16 years. I think it'll be
Hmm.
17 years this summer.
Wow.
And again, just, love fitness, love to see that. But, I just wanted to find something more. And
Hmm.
then in about 2019, I started Googling thinking, maybe I can find a way to do fitness and autism work. And then
Hmm.
I found you, Eric,
Hmm.
the Autism Fitness Program, and signed up. And yeah, I just want to take it to the next
Hmm.
level.
And you have with, then
Thank you.
getting into the expert level course as well. I want to go back a little bit because so historically with my one-to-one athletes, when
Hmm.
parents find me, there are I don't know what the percentage split is necessarily, but I have
Hmm.
parents who aren't necessarily active themselves,
Hmm.
but they recognize the importance of fitness, and that's why
Hmm.
they want their son or their daughter to have access to, a fitness program and a coach. For you, it was very different because you were already you were already living a very fit lifestyle,
Hmm.
and so this is something that was already important to you, and you
Hmm.
understood the inherent benefits as
Yeah.
well. So what was that like for you from the perspective of someone who's already being fit and the importance of bringing that, to all your kids, but particularly to your daughter?
Right. Yeah. So when I think back to when Emily was young,
Mhm.
I tried to put her in a lot of different programs. She'd express some interest in something and then
Mhm.
kind of lose interest. And now, knowing what I know now, I can see why, because there just weren't people there that really
Mhm.
understood, what our kids need, which
Mhm.
is, structure, and even, how we communicate with kids, meeting them kind of where they're at,
Mhm.
figuring out, um, you know sometimes things are overwhelming. There's too many rules in place with sports or even in fitness. And we just have to sort of just start with the basics, find out what they like, how we're going to move forward. So my two sons played hockey, so they were
Mhm.
always involved in that. um, but with Emily, there just wasn't a lot of sticking with certain sports. And
Mhm.
then there came a point where, I mean, again, a lot of the kids that we work with, and I know you do, Eric, we've talked about this, how, the kids are often socially isolated, they end up on the
Mhm.
computer a lot, and then they're not really doing anything active because it's hard to fit in sometimes to team sports, and then even just doing individual sports. And
Mhm.
yeah, so I feel like that's something that I see. And then just even from myself, when I see, say if I go to a regular gym,
Mhm.
it's just even, there is that social aspect to it. So if
Mhm.
somebody's already struggling with, fitting in, or, maybe not knowing, how to, say, maybe use a machine, or, say even in CrossFit. And
Mhm.
if you don't have coaches who have that awareness of what it
Yeah.
is to be autistic, or,
Mhm.
have some challenges,
Mhm.
they kind of get lost. And I hate to see that. And that's my personal goal, is always just
Yeah.
to reach out and just say, hey, come under my wing. We're going to figure this out.
Yeah. And it's remarkable how natural that comes to you. I think that's
Hmm.
one of your natural traits is
Yeah.
you always want to be there to support and to help people and provide them with the support that they need in order
Hmm.
to be successful. There's
Yeah.
something that I want to come back to because I think it's
Mm.
really well, I don't know how important it is, and I constantly want to pull myself back from from thinking that something is either too important or not important enough. But I want to go
Hmm.
back to the sports thing also
Hmm.
because this is, as you know, a big concept and theme that we talk about in the Autism Fitness program
Hmm.
is separating the sports-based program from general strength and resistance training
Hmm.
that we do. And so many parents that I've spoken with or interacted with, they sports is the reference point and
Hmm.
they think that's the thing. Like the sport itself is going to automatically do something. Can you
Hmm.
speak a little bit about some of the inherent challenges with again, the overarching theme that sports are not bad, but when we're
Hmm.
looking at it from the perspective of someone who is on the spectrum or
Hmm.
is autistic and they're having these challenges, what are
Hmm.
some of the some of the detriments or constraints of sports programs?
Yeah, I think, well, I think sports, just for everyone, even neurotypical people, it can be very overwhelming and even intimidating.
Mhm,
Even from a coaching perspective, when you see what coaches demand of kids,
mhm,
it depends on, the level of sport that they're getting into.
mhm,
Um, but I think this might just even be just an overall observation is, sometimes, I mean, sport should be fun. That
mhm,
should be the idea. Um, and of course, when you get into like high level sports, I mean, that is a whole different entity in itself.
mhm,
But I think, for the parents that are, wanting their kids to fit into a sports team, I think I mean, the first step is just, you know, seeing if they really like it and if
mhm,
they want to do it. But I think I guess back to what you were saying about the detriments or maybe some of the things that hold kids back is just again like just the lack of awareness. So if a child is say, I've just happened to see a hockey game yesterday,
mhm.
um, where actually I saw two different hockey games. I saw a adaptive hockey team playing another
Mhm.
adaptive hockey team, and then later saw more of a high level girls team.
Well, you're
Um,
in Canada, so isn't it
yeah,
your
this is
quota to watch at least two hockey games a day?
that is a belief, yes.
Okay, that's what I
I
thought.
think so. Yeah, although there are some people that actually don't skate and don't play hockey, and that's always a bit of a surprise to me. But anyways, um, but I think just, there's skills involved, but there's also just, formations and, for our kids who have autism, that can be a real challenge. We see that all the time. So,
Mhm,
when you get a child who goes out onto the ice, say, or onto the soccer field, or whatever it is that they're doing, and then aren't those supports in place, it can just be completely overwhelming. And then there's just maybe a feeling of I'm not fitting in, or just disappointment, or just complete confusion. Like
mhm,
it's just very, very difficult. And then you factor in the parents, and yeah, it's challenging.
mhm.
I hope I
Yeah, I
answered
mean,
that correctly.
yeah. Oh, well, the sport is this practice. It's a series
Hmm.
of rules and
Yeah.
movements,
Hmm.
and I think there's so much to consider also. And I don't know if uh, if a parent is necessarily taking into account everything that's involved in order to be an active, meaningful participant
Hmm.
in that particular sport, because ultimately there's always going to be, or most of the time, there will be some competitive on it
Yes.
too. And I've also had it where parents have
Hmm.
asked, "Oh, can you also work on this sport specific skill?"
Hmm.
And it, to an extent, you can do some of the technical work a little
Hmm.
bit. So maybe I take the last 5 or 10 minutes of a session, if
Yeah.
we're talking about a 50-minute session, to do that. But at the same time, I think it's really important to have the conversation of we can work on the technical skill,
Hmm.
and the technical skill can improve. However, when we are introducing this into the chaos of gameplay and
Hmm.
competition, and then you have offensive and defensive components of
Hmm.
this, the simple technical skill
Hmm.
may not flourish in that situation because of the all of those other variables. And I think that's really
Exactly.
important. Um, and one of the things I would really love your opinion and expertise on, especially from the perspective of a coach and the perspective
Hmm.
of a parent, is the
Hmm.
expectation management
Hmm.
of not only sports, but at what point should we see skill development physically also?
Right. Yeah, I think you just have to be very realistic about the expectations for your child, and that would be, for a neurotypical child as well.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, it's so important to work on those foundational skills in every sport. I do believe that a lot of teams do work on that now. There's a lot of,
Hmm.
off ice or off the
Sure.
field, physical fitness.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think when parents, it may be something maybe more that it's their expectations being sort of placed on the child.
Hmm.
And I think that can cause a lot of anxiety for the kids.
Hmm.
Um, I think that what I love about, your program and the Autism Fitness program is just working on those foundational skills.
Hmm.
And then once you can, feel that you're strong and you've got good core stability, and, you're able to, move efficiently. That's so important to do that first,
Hmm.
before you get into now learning a game or a different skill, and even that would be even the case, I'm sure, even with, I know you do Brazilian jiu-jitsu, which I
Hmm.
do not know much about. I think
Hmm.
my brother's doing that right now, but which he loves. But again, same thing, you have to learn those foundations first. That's just so paramount. And
Yeah.
I can see that even, when I'm sometimes coaching skating, some of the kids, I can see where the parents want them to learn to skate, but they do lack some of the strength and
Hmm.
some of that, stability. And it's kind of putting the skating first before sort of building on some other skills.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
that's just my little observation I've seen.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the two can be done concurrently too. I mean, you look at
Absolutely.
you can have your general strength, and
Yeah.
resistance training and your general conditioning, and
Hmm.
then you have your sport specific or your activity specific um, um, technical activity. And it's I've seen this in real time also because in the
Hmm.
late 90s, early 2000s, when more sports beyond just American football were
Hmm.
starting to integrate strength programs. Like you never saw it in baseball really until
No.
the late 90s and early 2000s. You never saw it in basketball. I
Hmm.
mean, it was almost taboo strength training.
Mm.
And then they realized, oh, if you get someone generally stronger,
Hmm.
um, they're going to have a bigger engine. So
Yeah.
their output will be better. It's not necessarily going to make them technically more
Hmm.
efficient or technically better with their sport, but it's going to give them greater general aptitude. Um,
Hmm.
so, and with that, the technical piece needs to be done, on the field or on the court or on the mat or wherever the environment is as well,
Hmm.
because you try to replicate it um, in in the strength and conditioning environment, and it doesn't really that those types of things don't generalize. You need to do them more in the
Hmm.
sport specific realm,
That's right.
which is
Yeah.
great because it's just an advancement of the science and the knowledge base on
Hmm.
what effective and efficient training is as well. And I
Hmm.
think one of the important things that you just brought up was having those foundations, but
Hmm.
having them, long term. And this is another discussion that gets into a couple different things with respect to expectation management also.
Hmm.
And I think it is informative from the fitness side and then
Hmm.
also informative from parent expectations as well. So what I mean by
Right.
that is
Hmm.
when we take some of the foundational exercises, we take a push up, we take an overhead press, we take a
Hmm.
squat, there is never going to be a time in
Hmm.
someone's training life
Hmm.
where any of those exercises really start to lose their efficacy. And you can
Hmm.
always knowing that we can always progress them. And I think going back to to expectations and okay, well, what are we doing next? And what after this?
Hmm.
I've been training for 20 thing years.
Hmm.
I still do push-ups.
Hmm.
I haven't outgrown push-up. It's still going to be a viable exercise
Right.
for, chest, triceps, and upper body pushing strength.
Hmm.
Um, I think the idea of the foundation, even in something like with jujitsu,
Hmm.
the foundations make the game. Um,
Hmm.
you never have a brown belt or a black belt who is still not working on, honing some of those foundational skills. And I think
Hmm.
it's easy, especially, and this is where I'd love your opinion. I think it's easy, especially with sports-based stuff, to say,
Hmm.
oh, well, if we just put them into this sport, then they're going to be able to do it. Or,
Right.
if we just throw a basketball jersey on them. I don't think that the assumption is this grand
Hmm.
or limited,
Hmm.
but I also think that there needs to be consideration of that long-term development as well. And the fact that a lot of these foundational things are the things that are going to make someone successful in their, lifetime fitness journey.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. And what you talk about, like the active daily living skills,
Mhm.
just so, so important. Um, yeah, I think, yeah, foundations are just so important. I mean, again, like just like you were saying with jujitsu or any sport, even in CrossFit, I mean, you're doing the same things throughout the year. You're still working on things, and there's things that, you're never really ever conquer anything. you're
Mhm.
always
Yeah.
you're always trying to get stronger, or be more efficient at a skill. There's some skills like I can't do a handstand.
Mhm.
I'm terrified of being upside down.
Mhm.
There's things, we all have our challenges, but I think, yeah, like I think for um for the expectations around sport,
Mhm.
I think especially for our kids, but even for honestly, just for all athletes, really. I mean,
Mhm.
you want to be learning things that you can do for the rest of your life and that are going to add value to your life.
Mhm.
So, you probably get a lot of joy out of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, just like I get so much joy out of CrossFit. But at the same time, I'm also doing it so that I have something that's going to carry me through for the rest of my life. And that's really what we want to do for our
Good choice.
athletes, for our kids, is just give them skills
Mhm.
so that they can carry that over into their lives and be able to be independent and have autonomy over their choices and what they're going to do in sport, in life, and helping around the family. We
Mhm.
talked about that a lot with the other coaches sometimes on other calls.
Mhm. So
Yeah.
speaking of autonomy and choice, so your daughter wound up training in MMA as well,
Yes,
correct?
yes, she did. Thank you for
So so
remembering.
so how did
Yeah,
she? I can't forget something like that.
yeah.
So how did that come about? Because I mean, I would always support that choice.
Yeah, I know. I'm just so happy for her because she really loves it.
Mhm.
I think she probably, I mean, when I was doing CrossFit, she was a little bit interested in it. I think also, I think just doing something that you can do for yourself. Like
Mhm.
even myself, I'm not really much of a team sport player
Sure.
myself.
Hmm.
Because, again, like as a kid, I was a little bit intimidated by the whole team sport thing. But, MMA for Emily, she ended up, just a side note, she's into real heavy metal music and she just
Hmm.
loves all that. And she ended up meeting, friends. And then one of her friends was actually an MMA coach. And
Hmm.
then that's kind of where it sort of evolved into her doing that. And now she just, she loves it. And she loves it for, that she can, she's really just working on herself and her skills.
Hmm.
I think she's also realized, the importance of, I think people often will look at physical health, physical fitness is like, oh, I need to do this so I look a certain way, or I,
Yeah.
want to be stronger. But the
Hmm.
mental health aspect is huge. And maybe even, I think personally, it's even bigger
Yeah.
because that just is such an important, factor in fitness. It's just, you go, you overcome your own challenges, you work hard, you get stronger, and then, basically if you can do that, you can do anything kind of with your
Hmm.
day.
Yeah.
It's just it sometimes almost has this, yeah, it's just it's medicine. It's just
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It has that therapeutic effect and and
Yeah.
cathartic effect also.
100%.
And no one ever does MMA. You can't go into MMA halfway. Like there's no
No.
with fists and feet and knees and
Hmm.
elbows and wrestling. There's no I'm kind of into it. There's so I'm sure one of the things that's beneficial for her also is she's around
Hmm.
some really dedicated people. Right?
Hmm.
You have to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And
What
and
were
and
some oh sorry, go ahead.
oh no, sorry, Eric. And I was just going to say too, yeah, I think also one of the benefits of, just going to any kind of program, is, it builds discipline into your life.
Hmm.
You have to show up. You got to, be there, and, stay till the end of the hour, or
Yeah.
whatever the time limit is. And I think that's also just, again, just more structure, which is just, of
Hmm.
course, comforting, even, for, especially for children on the spectrum and adults on
Yeah.
the spectrum.
Yeah.
But, even for all of us.
Yeah, I think one of the greatest benefits, and I definitely get this with jujitsu also, is you have to do hard things when you are
Hmm.
tired.
Yes.
And doing hard things when you are tired is definitely a character builder. I think that's one of the aspects that really transcends or
Hmm.
generalizes from
Yeah.
something like jujitsu or wrestling or MMA or other martial arts. Like you're tired, but there's still 30 seconds
Yes.
in this round. You're
Yeah.
tired, but you still want to roll with your friend because you haven't, rolled with them for 3 weeks. I
Right.
I that it teaches you that you can expect more out of yourself when
Yes.
when you think you have less.
Yes.
And I want to know, especially so your daughter starts getting into MMA. Did you immediately think, oh, it clicked for her, this is going to be her thing? Or was it, let's try it for a little while and see? Because I know that you were relatively unfamiliar with the MMA world prior to her getting.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't, I mean, other than, seeing a few matches on TV and
Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
Um, yeah, I mean, I thought, oh, she'll give it a go and, see how it goes. But I mean, she's been sticking with it probably for the
Mhm.
last, my gosh, it's probably been over 5 years now, and
Yeah.
she really enjoys it. And I mean, she's not going to be in the octagon anytime soon.
No.
And that's another thing. Everybody's goals are different. If you're doing it for fitness, or again, mental
Yeah.
health, or just being with. I mean, her coach is amazing. He's a great
Mhm.
guy. He's a great friend.
Mhm.
Yeah, she really loves it. And I was also I thought of something actually, Eric, what you were saying about that whole pushing through, though, when you've got the 30 seconds. And I think that's also something that with our autism fitness program is understanding, because of, some of the kids that we work with that, have some some sensory challenges.
Mhm.
It's that, pushing through, because it's just so easy
Yeah.
to say, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't like
Yeah.
this. And
Yep.
and yeah, I mean, I don't like it too. Sometimes if I'm doing squats and I have to go, what, 5 more? No way. But,
Right.
again, that's something that, we can help the kids kind of, come on, we can get through this, and just helping
Yeah.
them realize, that sort of
Man,
uncomfortable feeling.
I think there's still a difference too. Like at
Yeah.
this stage, we like that we don't like it,
Yeah.
which is which
That's
is
true.
which is very different. They're like, this sucks. Okay, good. We're in a
Yeah.
good we're in a good place here.
Yeah.
Um, it's embracing that the difficulty and the challenge of it
Mm.
for many of our, and I think this is such a great topic to explore right
Mhm.
now. So there is this, I hate use I really hate using the word balance, but
Mm,
there is a balance between, for many of our athletes, and obviously
mm-hmm,
we're talking not just a spectrum, but a
mm-hmm,
gradient scale um,
mm-hmm,
with autism, or a plot map, really. So there are times where we have an inclination as coaches that we can push an athlete a little bit, or we have
mm-hmm,
a very rigid athlete who is hyperfixated on this amount of time, this
mm-hmm,
amount of reps, this amount of sets, and this particular weight. And then we have, I've had this many times in my own practice. We have
mm-hmm,
what we think is an opening where, ooh, maybe today we can introduce a new exercise, or we can introduce a
mm-hmm,
fourth set, or we can introduce the green sand bells instead of the yellow sand bells, and just
mm-hmm,
try it for one or two. Sometimes it will backfire.
mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
then sometimes the athlete is much cooler than we supposed they would be about it. We're like, oh,
Mm,
okay, great. Yeah, sure.
yeah.
You're cool with it? Awesome.
Right.
So I wanted to know, your thoughts on that, both, in your experience watching your daughter, and then with some of the individuals that you've worked with also,
Yeah.
the where you see an inroad and you're like, I don't know, but I have this idea that I might be able to get them to a point where they would have been previously very uncomfortable.
Yeah. Um, yeah, with Emily, I mean, I have not gone to MMA with her, but what I see with her is that she just loves, she will, if I'll say, hey, do you want to meet up or something? She'll say, sorry, but I've got MMA, which
Mhm.
is great. I think, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I mean, wow, that's dedication. I love that.
Mhm.
Um, so, but I'm thinking of just one young woman that I was working with when I was actually doing my level 2
Mhm.
presentation. And, again, just going to the gym, introducing her to, like, say, squats. And of course, those are always challenging.
Mhm.
Um, and then just, you know, once she sort of started to feel uncomfortable, it was like, sorry, but I need to leave now. I'm going off to the restroom. And I was like, okay, that's cool. You're
Mhm.
taking a
Yeah.
break. But then there's kind of that time where you're just like, you know what? I think we can do 10 more. You know what? I'm going to do these together with you.
Yeah.
And just, making it a team effort and
Mhm.
just kind of getting that inkling of, like, I think we can, if we can just make this a little more fun, we can do this. And
Mhm.
then, lo and behold, there's 10 more squats. So it's like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh. And then, you have to celebrate that. You have to say, hey, oh my gosh, like, you had that in you. That's great.
Mhm.
And, thank you for doing those. And actually, I'm so glad I got to do these with you. So I think, yeah, just kind of recognizing, when you can, like, again, like, you see where there is an opening for that. And then
Yeah.
again, there is also that time where particularly working with, say, young adults, they're sort of like, no, sorry, I'm done. And that's
Mhm.
it.
Yeah.
There's no
Yeah.
question.
And you want to honor their autonomy at the
Of
same time. You're
course.
like, we have
Yeah.
16 minutes left in this session, and we're getting
Yeah.
some stuff done. And I think that's, again, it's such a delicate art and science as a
Mm,
coach, not to absolve our athletes of, of what we know is required of them, but
mm-hmm.
also to look at that in the context of really someone, breaking down someone's pack profile. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's, adaptively they're
Mm-hmm.
not having it. Do we know they can do that extra,
Yeah.
set of 10 squats? Yeah, sure. Are they
Yeah.
physically fatigued? Not really, but they're
No.
overwhelmed.
Yes.
We have to approach that differently.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm wondering where else that's come up in your practice when you've had to analyze something in the moment and say, I'm going to hold off on this, or no, I think we can get this done.
Yeah, actually, and again, it's just something just again, another memory of an incident. I think it was probably about a year ago, again, with this same athlete, is they were having kind of a difficult emotional day.
Hmm.
And I honestly just sort of didn't know, like, how are we going to manage this? So then I just said, you know what? I think we're going to go and do some exercise. Like, that's what's going to help. So we, ended up going down to the gym, and they continued to talk a lot about their issue that they were dealing with. There was,
Mhm.
they were just something that was a very, very challenging for them, and they were just having a hard time managing. But,
Mhm.
through exercise, we kind of worked it through. I said, you know what, let's just keep going. We were doing some overhead presses, we did some squats, all while I just listened, and we
Mhm.
just did that. And I think that probably just by doing that, they learned that it was kind of a valuable lesson. I mean, it didn't ultimately solve everything,
Sure.
but I think it just took them down a notch where they were able to kind of talk about something really rationally, and just kind of, just calm down and just say, you know what, this actually worked, and they did feel better. So I
Mhm.
think, yeah, I think that's just, I think maybe that's where working, in this program, you
Mhm.
do learn. It's, you're not just the fitness coach. You have to be very perceptive of the, like, everything that's going on, and just being very aware of, where they're coming from, where the athlete's coming from.
Yeah.
And that's where I can see that, without that awareness, coaches, may not, it's just, they've got their plan in place, and that's, sorry, that's, you're not
Mhm.
fulfilling what I want you to do, and then that's it. And then I feel like that's just such a, it's probably often a turnoff for a lot of, athletes,
Mhm.
that they may just feel like, you know what, I'm not feeling heard, so I don't want to do this anymore. And what a sad moment, because
Yeah.
you want them to kind of push through, and just,
Mhm.
you know, realize like how great this is, and we can
Yeah.
start fresh tomorrow. We'll be
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
Once you're on the other side of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you started the program in
Hmm.
2021. What
Yeah.
would you say as a coach, as a practitioner, what would you say your greatest improvement has been in that time frame? Where would you pinpoint I've gotten really good at and really adept at this particular thing or
Yeah.
this particular aspect of programming?
Yeah. I think probably just, learning much more about the terminology, was really helpful, because I didn't really have that before.
Hmm.
Um, I think just in my approach with talking to the athletes that,
Hmm.
I've worked with, um, I just love making connections with people in general, but I think that's a big turning point for me, where I just see
Hmm.
where the kids, or or even the young adults, they're happy to have that conversation with me. So I feel like that was a big turning point, where I thought, my gosh, I love this. I want to do
Hmm.
this. So important. And also just seeing how they can thrive, and it can make their life better. And then
Hmm.
even just, in connecting even with the parents.
Hmm.
Um, even like last summer, I was working as an inclusion facilitator in summer day camps.
Hmm.
And again, just connecting with the kids, but with the families, I think that's a big turning point for me, where I thought,
Hmm.
you know what, this is really important work,
Hmm.
and I really want to do this,
Hmm.
and I just want to take it to the next level, and become a better coach,
Hmm.
and just, yeah. And I think it's the communication part.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think
Both
so.
both with athletes and with families too.
Yeah.
What have you learned the most? Like, did you have did you have a moment where you said that was a really good family conversation? Like that where everything about it was great.
Yeah. Yeah, oh my gosh. Oh, now Eric, this is what happens. I end up suddenly having all these little stories that come out.
Yeah, that's why we're doing
Um,
this.
yeah, exactly. This was probably just before Christmas. I actually sometimes volunteer at an adaptive boxing program. And there
Hmm.
was one teenager that showed up with his mom, and he really didn't, she wanted him to do boxing, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know that he was, he may have been interested in it, but he was a little bit shy, and a little bit reluctant to maybe, I mean, there was no sparring going on. It was just
Right.
strictly, pad
Right.
work and the gloves and that. But, sometimes you just have to sort of take a step back. So I was just like, hey, how are you doing? what do you like to do? Like, how's school going? And he said, oh, it's not so great, and then I said, well, there has to be something you love. And he told me he loved French. So then I said something to him in French because I'm studying French.
Yeah.
And then his eyes lit up, he was kind of like, oh, wow, this is
Yeah.
interesting, sort of. So it was like that connection. And
Hmm.
then we got into a conversation about Minecraft, which I don't know a lot about, but I'm kind of fascinated with because I
Yeah.
sort of love building things as well.
Hmm.
So he filled me in on a lot of details. And his mom, I think she was just really excited about the fact that, suddenly there was this connection. So
Hmm.
I think that is just so powerful. You just need to, probably the first session with anybody or first meeting is just
Yeah.
making that connection, finding out, what it is that they love, what motivates them. Because then, of course, the motivation factor is
Hmm.
huge. Because then if you know that, you know, somebody's into Minecraft or Mario. I have a little
Yeah.
skater that I work with who loves this Mario game. So we always
Hmm.
have to do a Mario component to it.
Yeah.
And once you do that, you've kind of got them interested
Yeah.
and motivated. Yeah. So I think that's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I, I would agree. It's huge because it's such a perfect example of empathetic coaching because,
Yes.
17 years in CrossFit, right?
Hmm.
I'm just gonna, you love power cleans and
Hmm.
overhead presses and everything. You don't need a secondary reinforcer, and you don't
No.
need it to be highly specified to other things
Hmm.
that you enjoy outside of CrossFit. Like you
Right.
go in and you
Hmm.
you exercise.
Yeah.
For so many of our athletes, that's not the case. It has to be, in order for it to be successful,
Hmm.
not just for you and not just
Yeah.
for them, but for the process. You need to engage them with things that are already on their high register of
Hmm.
enjoyment.
Right.
Otherwise, what happens is they're doing it, but they're only doing it because they're being bolstered up by,
Hmm.
well, I guess I have to.
Yeah.
And I guess I have to is, I mean, sometimes we start with that,
Yeah.
but when you have that rapport with
Hmm.
that athlete of, oh, this person gets me,
Yeah.
they're cool with my interests, we can have dialogue
Yeah.
around this, then you can guide them through the rest of the session because they're already engaged. And it's
Yes.
you think about that from the long-term developmental perspective. And I say long-term, whether you're starting with
Hmm.
someone at 15 or you're
Yep.
starting with them at 45.
Hmm.
If you want them to have this throughout their lifetime, it has to be engaging.
Yes.
Because even the people who come into the gym and curse and complain their way through everything are
Yeah.
still doing it.
Yes.
But we need to scaffold
Yes.
around that. And I think that's
Yeah.
what you're describing here.
Yeah, and actually, Eric, that's one of my favorite things is watching your little videos that you post on Instagram, with your interactions with some of the kids and just the conversations and just, you're just listening going, that's great. And then of course, you've got, I'm sure all of the athletes have their certain interests in that. But yeah, I think that is something that is, you know, the super plus of autism fitness is
Mhm.
just, understanding that because it's the magic, it's the secret sauce, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
thank you. I think that's what makes it different because it's not
Yeah.
just coaching. It's not just
Hmm.
having the exercises and
Yeah.
modifications and it's not just any of it.
Hmm.
You can't just take one aspect of it and say, okay,
Hmm.
well, this is enough to create the entire curriculum because you're missing such huge and important pieces of what makes the program effective too.
Exactly.
So finally, I wanted to ask from your perspective, because this is, you know, something that I've been learning for the past,
Hmm.
20 years. As a parent of a young woman with autism,
Hmm.
what would you say to other parents who
Hmm.
are in that space of oh, maybe, fitness seems like a good thing, but we
Hmm.
have all these other things that are
Hmm.
important too. Like
Yeah,
someone, a parent who hasn't been doing CrossFit or been in the gym
right,
for 17 years.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, you don't have to be a CrossFitter. You don't have to be, a competitive person. I mean, it's just, I think, and this is just for everyone, is,
Mhm,
but it's, for our athletes, fitness is just, it's medicine, it's life. And
mhm,
people don't realize that, when you actually do some of the, these functional fitness exercises, it's going to just make your life just that much more manageable, and you're going to have a much easier time as you grow. And I mean, ultimately, you want to have a healthy child, and you don't have to be a super athlete. You just need to be able to do these basic skills, and
mhm,
it's going to transfer over into being able to carry your backpack, or help take the garbage out, and do all those active daily living skills. And but also just that sense of independence, and just a sense of accomplishment, because again, when you do have a child who is on this on autism spectrum, I mean, there's challenges every day, but if
mhm.
you can do that one thing every day, hey, I did some squats and some overhead presses, or whatever, push-ups, and that's a little bit of an accomplishment.
Mhm.
You're going to move forward, and you're going to feel, wow, I did that, I can do anything. And then of course, our kids are growing up, they don't stay there. I always, sometimes I'll say, I have a child with autism.
Yeah,
Well, I
yeah,
actually have an adult with autism.
yeah.
But she's doing great, she's thriving, she's
Mhm,
working. I mean, I know that it's a big spectrum, not all families have that. um, but again, you want them to be healthy, you want
mhm.
them to feel great about themselves, and you want them to be able to go out and be independent, and grow. And I think that gives parents a sense of their some of comfort, knowing that their children are going to be able to manage themselves.
Yeah. And in
Yeah.
Emily's case, knowing three different arm bars and hip escapes.
Yes. Okay, I'm gonna have to ask her about what those are. Okay.
Emily, how many arm bars do you know? Well,
Okay,
uh,
I'll have to ask her. Yeah.
oh, Carolyn
Yeah.
Taylor, Canadian coaching superstar. Thank you so much for
Oh,
this. I think
oh,
especially for parents and family members, this is a really powerful interview, and I appreciate it. Where can
mm.
people find you on social?
Um, I am on Instagram at Belong Fitness Coaching.
Mhm. I'll link
So
it here too.
yeah,
Yep.
Belong Fitness Coaching. And yeah, I'd love to hear from you. And I just, to just be a great listener, come and talk to me. And, I can talk to you about fitness, but I can also talk to you about being a mom,
Mhm.
which is great. And Eric, thank you for having me. I just really appreciate you. And I'm just so glad that I found you. And I have found some amazing friends through this
Mhm.
autism fitness program, as other coaches, Shanta,
Mhm.
Cecilia, just Jose, and
Yeah.
another Canadian coach,
Yeah.
and I mean, so many more that I would love to get to know. And I don't know, just it'd just be so great for all of us to be in one room one day, and I'm praying for that.
I know it's always in it's always in the back of my mind that I know I have to
Yeah.
do it at some point.
Yeah, yeah. And oh my gosh, even Marco, and
Yeah,
yes,
the Croatia crew.
yes, yes. I know. Just amazing. Yeah, you're taking it worldwide.
And continuing to do so. And on
Yes.
that note, if anybody is
Hmm.
interested in becoming an Autism Fitness Certified Pro, head to autismfitness.com. You can register and start your coursework immediately, and then meet me or one of our master pros for your full day virtual or in person practical, so you can get the hands on, feet on, brains on training that you and your athletes deserve. Carolyn, thank you again. I really appreciate this. And I know a lot of people out there, people who we know, people who we don't know yet, will appreciate this interview as well. So
Oh, great. Thank you so much, Eric.
thank
All
you.
right.
Bye.
Enjoy your day.
You too.
All right. Thank you. Bye.